Hi, my name's Ralph Brickley, and welcome back to DivideTheWord.blog. Today we're going to talk about Christians and tattoos, and can they have tattoos? Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and the notification bell icon to be notified of every future video. So let's talk about Christians and tattoos. But I get asked this question all the time. On the blog, on this YouTube channel, other social media groups, can Christians have tattoos? And what about that scripture in Leviticus 19:28 that seems to condemn tattoos? Well, the interesting thing about the article and when you have this conversation is it's such a divisive 50-50 answer. There's the pro-tattoo camp, the opponents of tattoo camp, and there doesn't seem to be much in between. And what always strikes me about these conversations is how little scriptural basis they have. They're always, I feel, or I think, or I don't think we should, or I don't see a reason why we can't, or it's always about an emotional response to the conversation or the question, not so much about Scripture. And there is scant evidence in Scripture about this topic. Now, we know, of course, that paganism was something that God wanted his people to stay away from. He really didn't want them to adopt the lifestyle and or the practices of pagan ritual and mysticism, the supernatural. And that's actually what Leviticus 19:28 was about. Don't forget, however, that Leviticus 19:28 is the Mosaic Law. And it's not to say that we should just have freedom to do whatever we want, regardless of Scripture's commands and examples. But as far as Mosaic Law goes, we're not under the law anymore. The law was a curse. And if we're going to try to obey one part of the law, Paul teaches us, we have to obey the entire law. And more often than not, the person who brings out Leviticus 19:28 as the proof text of why a Christian cannot get a tattoo is somebody who, myself included, is constantly breaking the commandments of the Old Testament law. That same chapter in that same book is filled with hundreds of other commandments that we no longer cling to. You weren't supposed to wear clothing of mixed fabrics, polyester or cotton that were mixed together. You were not to plow your field with mixed animals, one cow here and one donkey there that's pulling the same mechanical structure. There's all sorts of rules about dietary and whether you can be around sick people or dead people, or what to do if you touch a corpse, and what to do on restitution if you were to harm another person or cause their crops to fail, or whatever the circumstance was. There are hundreds of Old Testament Mosaic laws that we break on a daily basis. Even those of us who try to use that scripture to say that we cannot have tattoos as a Christian. One person said, if you were filled with the Spirit of God, what makes you think he would be okay dwelling inside a body covered in tattoos? You see, that kind of comment contradicts the entirety of Scripture. And then there's the history of tattoos. Now, there's scholarly debate when Paul said, I bear the marks of the gospel, whether he was talking about physical scarring from abuse and torture, and or that word mark comes from stigmata, which was to have a mark placed upon your body, or a tattoo. And we know that in the 4th to 8th century, councils began talking about this because in those days it was actually becoming common for Christians to have a cross tattooed upon their body as a stigma or a sign of their Christian faith. In fact, in 787 AD in Northumberland, there was a council held, and admittedly this was a Catholic council, but a council was held that said this: when an individual undergoes the ordeal of tattooing for the sake of God, he is greatly praised. But the one who submits himself to be tattooed for superstitious reasons, in the manner of heathens, will derive no benefit therefrom. You see, just like the scripture in Leviticus 28, it was talking about for what purpose these people were being tattooed. Make no markings upon your flesh for the dead. This was a superstitious and mystical ritual that believed that when you marked the symbols upon your body of another dead person and their symbology, that you could inherit their power and that you would have some kind of supernatural link to those people in the afterlife. This was a supernatural and mystic pagan ritual They did it for a very specific reason. Guys, it's just like the Christmas tree conversation. I know there are many groups out there, and even some offshoot or more diehard preachers, ministers in the Oneness Pentecostal church where I came from, who even don't allow their people to have Christmas trees and celebrate Christmas because it came from some pagan history and ritual. I got to break it to you. You could read the book Pagan Christianity. Christianity is full of things that were taken from paganism, and yet we still do them in honor to God. And this was the exact same conversation taking place with the Christmas tree. How many of us, when we set up a Christmas tree to decorate and put lights up and have a really good time with our family, do we bow down and worship it? Well, I don't. And that's what the scripture was talking about. It was talking about bowing down and worshiping the tree as an idol. And this is the context of Leviticus 19:28. Are you getting a tattoo for a superstitious reason, as the heathens do, or are you doing it some way to be in honor to God or decorative for yourself? What is the motivation behind getting a tattoo? Now, I will say, tattoos are permanent. Think before you ink. Pray about it. If you want to take it from a Christian perspective, ask God. God, is what I'm going to do honoring to you? I've seen people with tattoos that were a scripture verse reference or some kind of symbol, a Christian symbol, and it caused people to ask, what does that mean? In fact, I'll use the thumbnail for this video of a woman who has a cross and a Galatians reference on her shoulder blade. I can only imagine that when she's out at the lake, at the river, at parties, whatever, people ask, what does that mean? And it gives her an opportunity to witness to Scripture and to God and to the saving grace of Jesus Christ that justifies us by faith. So friends, can a Christian have a tattoo? Yes, absolutely. We're no longer under the Mosaic Law. But you need to think before you ink. You need to ask yourself the motivation behind what you're doing and whether or not it's going to be pleasing to you permanently for the rest of your life. Is it going to be a good example and a good witness? And is it going to bring honor to our God and Father? So I hope you enjoyed the video. I will link a written description that goes into more detail about this particular topic in the description below. Make sure to subscribe, like the video if you appreciate it. Always look forward to your feedback and comments. Leave those in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button for future videos, and we'll see you next time at the dividetheword.blog.